So you might have heard that Mexico had a little bit of an election recently. And just like we've seen in a lot of different places, even in America, there is a rejection of the establishment, the status quo. Now, sometimes it's a right-wing candidate who uses populism, and sometimes, of course, racist nationalism, and sometimes it's a left-leaning candidate. Now, this time in Mexico, we just happen to have the latter. This is Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He's also known as AMLO. Or even he's been called the Mexican Bernie Sanders. Now, I don't know if that comparison is absolutely correct, but let's look at it. Now, I'm not, an expert on Mexican politics or the Mexican parties. I basically just did a refresher course on it, or a crash course on learning about the candidates, so I might not be 100% on my details. Nonetheless, let me go to where I am 100% of the details. That AMLO kicked ass. The final tally showed him with 53% of the vote. That is well ahead of all the other candidates who did not do very well against him. That suggests that he had a huge margin of support. Now, the polls also suggested the party AMLO founded in 2014, the Movement for National Regeneration, or also known as Morena, had won at least 5 of the 9 gubernatorial races. Now, with the winners included Mexico City's first elected female mayor, Claudia Sheinbaum. Now, that is a huge win. Now, of course, he did win and is creating a coalition. Now, his coalition varies widely, and that could cause some issues. But first, let me go to what he said about this. He said, "We will listen to everyone, we will care for everyone, we will respect everyone, but we will give priority to the most humble and to the forgotten." Now, basically, he's like, I want to take care of poor people. Poverty is a huge problem in Mexico, and yes, I'm going to serve the needs of the middle class, I'm serving the needs of the rich, but my priority is poor people. Well, I love that. I think that's a great thing. Now, one of his major planks, though, and this is a big problem in Mexico from what I understand, is that corruption is rampant among the government. So what's one of AMLO's biggest campaign planks? I'm going to get rid of the corruption. That sounds familiar. Oh, it turns out that if you go after corruption, which nobody likes, that happens to be very, very popular. Well, great. Now, that's awesome. Now, analysts do expect him to also pursue a less aggressive and less militarized approach to Mexico's war on drugs. Now, that war on drugs have claimed about an estimated 200,000 people in its 11 years. So that is an absolute disaster. I know it would help if we actually legalize drugs here in the United States. See, drug policy, look, in America, there is a huge, huge demand for a lot of these different drugs, and that, of course, has emboldened and empowered Mexican drug cartels. Now, cartels have a huge impact in Mexico. In fact, there's a lot of people are getting killed. A lot of politicians in the lead up to these elections were also killed. So somewhere around 130 politicians were killed during this election season by gang drug violence. So that is a huge, huge problem there. And so anything to go and take the power out of the hands of the cartels is a great thing. And what the previous right-wing presidents of Mexico have been doing over the last decade hasn't been working. So I'm in favor of that. Less militarized for sure, but a big way to actually solve the problem is to make sure that drugs are legal in the United States. So that's something that we can do. Now, and that means that, of course, they're not going to be able to work with the Trump administration. In fact, he is a huge critic of President Trump. So that's awesome. Now, he also said on this, you cannot fight violence with more violence. You cannot fight fire with fire. He also proposed an amnesty designed to help low-level outlaws turn away from a life of crime. Well, that is good. Now, his coalition, look, he's proposed a lot of social programs and stuff to help poor people, but there might be a problem because of his coalition. Now, it ranges from, get this, hardcore communists to right-wing nationalists and a lot of people in between. So if you're working with people from the spectrum, it might be difficult to do some of the social policy. And I'm just being realistic about it. Nonetheless, they could probably come to some sort of compromise and be able to move some progressive legislation forward. And failing that, they could at least go after the drug war and a lot of the corruption, which is a huge, huge problem. And that would, of course, help a lot of people. So we're going to see what happens, what direction that he plans to go. I hope he continues to go left. And I hope he continues, I hope he's successful at doing this. Now, look, going after corruption, ending the drug war, and stopping poor people, this is a victory for the left, not only just in Mexico, but I think worldwide, and especially here in America, because you can see that leftist politicians can actually ride this wave of anti-establishment feeling in order to win elections. Maybe we should actually do that here. Now, it's not just a victory for the left, though. I think right-wingers here in America should also be in favor. Why? Why should right-wingers be in favor of a leftist president in Mexico? Well, it's because rampant poverty and death and danger from the drug gangs are part of the reason that some people come and cross the border. So, look, if you're not in favor of immigration or illegal immigration, then a stronger Mexico, then a happier Mexico, Mexico with, farmers in mind and less people who are, in poverty and less death and from the drug war and all that stuff. Those are only good things. And that's good for everybody. Now, whether or not he can do that, and I don't think he can do it alone. No politician can do all that stuff alone, of course. But especially with the levels of corruption we have in Mexico and the murders of politicians by drug gangs, so be careful. Maybe he can do that. I hope he can, and I wish him the best of luck to be able to do those things. Now, one thing is clear, and that I know for sure, is that the elite, the establishment, they despise him, and they will try to destroy him. So they'll do whatever they can to stop this wave of left-wing leaders. And, of course, I hope he is successful in fighting off those challenges and actually making a better Mexico for regular working people. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.